Hey third grade, Miss B here. So this week in reading, we're going to continue with the American Revolution. So for the second week, we're going to read this article here together called "The Colonists Come Together to Prepare for War." Before we get started, we're just going to go over some vocabulary words that are going to pop up in this reading. We did learn them last week, but we're going to just refresh our memory because they're pretty new to us still. So the colonists are the people who settled in what is now the United States. But remember, at this time, during the American Revolution, it's not the United States yet. So if we flash back 120 years before the American Revolution, during this time that we're talking about, remember the Pilgrims sailed from Europe across the sea, and they landed in this area that's in red. And there were people living here before they got here. The Native Americans, indigenous people, were living here. So the Pilgrims took over that land, stole the land, colonized the area, and they began settling here. So they settled here, which means that they started building communities and houses and all of that. So flash forward now, they're more established. They've got houses and churches and communities, right? They're the colonies now. So if we kind of zoom in here, you'll recognize some of these names, right? Massachusetts, that's where we live. Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania. So colonies are basically just the states that we have. We just don't call them states because at this point in time, we're not the United States yet. So we just call them the colonies. And there's 13 of them, if you counted them up, all in red. So the people who live here are the colonists. All right, and then a militia is an army of regular people, so made up of the Minutemen. And the key word here is regular people. They're not super well-trained soldiers. They're just ordinary people with ordinary jobs who wanted to fight in the revolution because they strongly believed that the colonies needed to become free from England. So they're regular people who wanted to fight. They're called Minutemen because they had to be ready in a minute's notice. This is an example of a Minuteman. And they are fighting against the British Army, which we call the Redcoats. And they're called that because, you guessed it, they wear red coats. So we've got the Minutemen fighting the British, the Redcoats. And you'll notice that the British look a lot more professional and well-equipped, and they've got matching uniforms because, again, they're professional soldiers, if you will, unlike the Minutemen, who are just regular people. All right, then we have the First Continental Congress. It's kind of a mouthful, but let's break it down. The First Continental Congress is just a big meeting where colonies sent delegates to plan and discuss the revolution against the British. A delegate is just a representative, somebody that represents an area. So, First Continental Congress, just a big meeting with delegates to discuss making a new government. Alrighty, so let's read. So you can follow along as I read out loud. The colonists come together to prepare for war. The colonists decided to start working as a team. They organized a meeting. The First Continental Congress met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Every colony except Georgia sent representatives, called delegates, to share the feelings of their own colony with the group. Massachusetts sent some famous delegates, John Adams and Samuel Adams. So colonists, all of them except for Georgia down here, sent representatives to share their feelings about their colony as a whole group. So everybody's meeting up in Pennsylvania, which is right here, and I know that because it's Pennsylvania's pointing to right here. Okay. Back in Massachusetts, people tried to prepare for the possible war. Patriots built up a supply of guns, bullets, and other weapons. They stored them in hiding places in towns and villages. Every town set up a militia. Oh, there's that word, militia. Every town set up a army of regular people. Groups of Minutemen were organized. Minutemen had to be able to report for duty in a matter of minutes. That's how they got their name. If they were plowing their field, someone would have to take over for them so they could fight in the battle. These Minutemen would be the first to respond to danger from the British. Minutemen, British. The regulars are coming. Like many patriots, Paul Revere watched the British troops carefully. One night, redcoats set out to capture weapons that the colonists had gathered in Lexington and Concord. Lexington and Concord are just names of towns in Massachusetts. When Revere noticed them moving in the harbor in secret, he was very worried. He asked a friend to go up to the bell tower of the North Church, that's this, and watch for the British to get closer. They made up a signal. If the British were coming in the water across the Charles River, the friend would put 2 lanterns up in the tower. If the British were coming by marching on land, he would put up only 1 lantern. They called the plan 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. So this is the old North Church that still exists in Boston today. I've walked by it many times. If you're ever in Boston, you should keep an eye out because it's pretty cool. While Paul Revere was warning his other friends, John Hancock and Samuel Adams, that he thought the British would attack soon, Paul saw 2 lanterns in the tower of the North Church. 2 lanterns. Keep that in mind. Paul knew what he had to do. It was around midnight when he jumped on his horse, Brown Beauty, and galloped into the night. Another rider named William Dawes also saw the signal and took off for Lexington. Okay, so 2 lanterns. What does that signify? What does that signal? Let's go back. They called the plan 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. Okay, so 2 lanterns means that the British were coming by sea. They were coming in boats. Revere and Dawes met in Lexington. When they spread the news to the town, the church bells were rung to warn everyone that the British were coming. Minutemen began to gather on the town green. Okay, so the Minutemen have now been warned, they heard the bells, and they have to get ready to fight in a minute's notice. Another patriot named Dr. Samuel Prescott joined the other riders, and all 3 raced toward Concord. They warned anyone they passed along the way to be ready. The British are coming. Somewhere along the way, some British guards stopped the riders and tried to arrest them. Paul Revere and William Dawes had to turn back, but Dr. Prescott jumped his horse over a rock wall and escaped. He rode on to Concord. And that is the end, my friends. Thank you for listening and reading with me, and feel free to play the video again or rewind if you need help with the questions on Edge Elastic. Bye-bye!